That is something they want to bring back. They like the idea of having a subservient, reliant woman in their life that can't say no to them and has nothing to fall back on if she decides to leave him. So, I've talked very often about how conservatives love to project, especially when it comes to claiming that, let's just say they like to say people on the left, particularly the LGBT community, are pedophiles and groomers, and yet evidence keeps coming out of maybe they're the actual pedophiles and groomers, maybe it's actually the right-wingers. I don't know, guys. The evidence just keeps coming out. Most recently, and most hotly talked about today, in fact, is a new bill that has been proposed by the GOP, the Republicans, the right, in Tennessee, that would supposedly legalize child marriage. Now, honestly, I would be surprised if child marriage in some form through loopholes and whatnot wasn't already legal in Tennessee, considering that most conservative red states already have existing loopholes to allow child marriage to exist. It's a huge problem in this country. Mostly Republican politicians have done an extraordinarily good job of preserving their right to, marry underage girls. They love doing that. But admittedly, there can be some misinformation out there about it. Sometimes you see an article or you hear a talking point and you think, oh, holy shit. This is perfect. Completely supports the narrative. It's perfect. And you share it, and it just doesn't end up being true. So is it true? Will this bill actually make child marriage in the state of Tennessee, a grown man and a little girl, hypothetically, legal? Yes. According to Snopes, and Snopes is fairly reliable, would a proposed Tennessee law legalize child marriage? House Bill 0233 was a GOP attempt to give legal recognition to exclusively heterosexual common law marriages. Claim: in 2022, Tennessee Republicans supported a piece of legislation that would legalize child marriage. Mostly true is the rating. What's true? If implemented, House Bill 0233/Senate Bill 0526 would create a new way for the state of Tennessee to legally recognize common law marriages, but the legal text creating that record of marital contract at common law contains no minimum age restrictions and would thus have the effect of allowing anew the legal recognition of marriages that involve children. However, what's false, despite depictions of the legislation as being a bill to legalize child marriage or to allow child marriage, one of its primary sponsors has clearly explained that it is not intended to have that consequence. So, I like how even Snopes has to say, yeah, it's true, but the ones pushing the bill said that's not the intent. Yeah, Freya Blackson, it's either accidental pedo or just the biggest Pepe smug look at the screen moment ever. Can we learn more about this thing? I'd love to learn more about this bill. Action News 5. Hit me up, Action News 5. Let's hear what you got for me, baby. Let's go.
Want to make common law marriage legal, but the bill being pushed through the legislature this week doesn't have any age requirements. Opponents say that paves the way for allowing child marriage. Action News 5's Joyce Peterson here with those details. Joyce?
Yeah, Kanji, 24 Tennessee Republicans have sponsored this bill, and it's making headlines all across the globe. Take a look. Newsweek, The Hill, even the Daily Mail in the United Kingdom, all talking about this. Folks wondering, are lawmakers in Tennessee really going to legalize child marriage?
So all this bill does...
State Rep Tom Leatherwood, the Republican from Shelby County, introduced House...
The biggest shame of all of this is they're talking about this as if child marriage isn't already legal in the vast majority of U.S. states because of Republicans.
Bill 233, trying to legalize common law marriage in Tennessee as a pushback to the LGBTQ movement.
And if there's any hostility, it's against those people that do believe marriage comes from God, not from government.
For the record, if any of you guys are wondering, why is there like any ideological connection between conservatives and wanting to marry little girls? Old white conservative men and wanting to fuck and marry little underage like girls. Is there an ideological reason for it? Of course there is. You can find it in conservatism itself. Conservatives have always valued this traditionalist idea that, and let's be real, this is their mindset, whether they'll admit it or not, they all think it. Their mindset always leads back to it logically. If there's grass on the field, play ball. Back in the olden days that they hearken back to and say they want to make America great again and take us back to are the days where it was completely acceptable and not at all, maybe a little bit startling, that a young girl who's like 16 or 17 might get with a much older guy and get pregnant and have a kid. That is something they want to bring back. They like the idea of having a subservient, reliant woman in their life that can't say no to them realistically because of the implication, and has nothing to fall back on if she decides to leave him. There's a reason why conservatives look down so much on divorce, especially when it comes to women divorcing a husband, right? Conservatives in their ideology actively not just like allow, but if we're being honest, encourage relationships between older white conservative men in particular and young girls. They love it.
And do believe it's between one man and woman.
It's my concern to be you're changing the law because, of course, we have strict age limits on marriage in Tennessee, and I don't think we want to get away from that.
The Democrats on the panel questioned a missing critical element.
So your current language does not have an age limit. You're aware that our current law does have an age limit. You know what that age limit is?
Current Tennessee law states you can get married as young as 17 if you have parental consent. Critics worry House Bill 233, if passed, would allow child marriage or child sex abuse.
What in your legislation would stop a 16-year-old from going down with someone else to the courthouse and getting this done, since there's no age restrictions within your law?
I think it would be construed that minors would not be able to enter into this
So it would be assumed.
contract.
Assumed. So we're going to take the assumption that they would not include minors in this.
We're making a whole bunch to do with in getting off in the weeds here.
Oh, yes, I'm sure this guy right here is very concerned about the argument getting off into the weeds. Let's not talk about the age limits. Is it maybe telling that every motherfucker arguing in favor of this bill looks like he's got a basement full of little girls back home?
When this strictly is a form that we certainly should entitle our citizens the right to choose.
We have no age limit restriction in this legislation at all. And that's very much a problem.
All right, tonight, State Senator Ramesh Akbari from Memphis tells Action News 5 it's ugly enough Republicans are advancing an unconstitutional bill to undermine marriage equality. But the fact that this bill reopens the debate on child marriage is outrageous. Kids need time to grow and mature. Kids need to be kids, not brides and mothers. The bill passed the subcommittee and now goes before the House Civil Justice Committee tomorrow. And the full Senate takes it up on Thursday. We'll keep you posted. Live in studio tonight, I'm Joyce Peterson, Action News 5.
We can discuss something right now, chat. I believe that we are currently... Hello, Intentions Nasty. I believe that we are currently living in what is essentially 2014 2. If there's like an equivalent of like, if there's going to be like a Gamergate 2 and my predictions are right, I would say that right now we're living in the repeat of 2014. I think this is only the beginning. I think it's going to get worse. I think the right is going to get more dominant. I think especially after the midterms this year, it's going to get worse. And I think it's very possible Trump wins the 2024 election. If he runs, I think it's very, very, very possible. And perhaps even likely. I won't throw anything crazy out there. Like, I'm not saying that, like, he's going to do it. I'm just saying it's not off the table. And I think there's enough Americans out there that support Trump that he could still possibly get into office. I would not, just because he got voted out, throw away the idea of Trump getting a second term. Trump very well may get a second term still. It's very possible. And it may follow this direction the country seems to be like moving in. Do you remember all the blatant hypocrisy of the online right back in the day? How it was all about how the how the SJWs, the feminists, the LGBT, whatever, want to change their the media and make it woke, and like they're the ones trying to change the media and make it woke, while the media now is just fine. They're the ones making the videos calling for the media to get woke, yada yada, and they're arguing against the videos calling for insert media to be more woke, right? Like, it would be responding to a video saying The Witcher 3 doesn't have enough brown people in it. So the way they always framed it was always very much defensive, right? The progressives are the ones attacking their favorite video games, and it was them on the right defending the merits of their favorite video games, saying, no, they're not problematic, they're not racist, yada, 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 sort of as a defensive measure. Yet at the same time, these same creators, in many cases, were drumming up a massive shitstorm over when certain media chooses to include progressive elements such as representation. Do you guys remember the Overwatch comic, the one with the where they reveal, I don't know if it's like the reveal, but where it's like full-on reveal that Tracer's a lesbian, and they show her like kiss her girlfriend or something? Do you remember how mad the internet got? Or Soldier 76? They got so goddamn mad about that. They got so fucking angry about it because they saw it, as many conservatives nowadays say, as, you know, politics being injected into the media. And yet simultaneously, they argue against those who are in favor of there being more progressive elements added into media. So at once they are arguing, stop criticizing this media and saying it should be different and have politics in it, while on the other hand, criticizing media that is different and has politics in it for being different and having politics in it. Not to mention, by the way, the talking point was always, do you guys remember during Gamergate? Do you guys remember during Gamergate, the very top popular talking point that would be said to like the feminist game critics? If you want games to be more woke, just make your own games. Do you guys remember that? The make your own games thing? When it was always make your own games. If you want woke games, then just make them yourself. And then games started to get woke, and now the number one narrative is shitting on woke games. Because that was never what they wanted. It was never that they didn't want politics injected into their favorite media. That wasn't what it was. It was that they simply don't want groups of people that they see as degenerate or lesser than them to be represented, because they know that representation helps people in marginalized groups. People who hate trans people, people who are racist and hate brown people or whatever, they don't like representation in media, and they complain about it and they call it political woke whatever, because they know representation in media has overwhelmingly positive effects, from making people less racist and less bigoted towards the groups being represented, to giving those that are parts of the groups represented someone to look up to and role models to follow. Or at the very least, some indication that they are not alone, right? That is why conservatives are so against it, and that is why they've always railed against it. They are not honest about their intentions or their beliefs. And the same thing is happening here. They will simultaneously push an entire culture war narrative over the next 3 years minimum around the idea that the left and the LGBT community are all grooming child sexual predators, while simultaneously constantly being outed for raping children, kidnapping children, having sex with underage girls, and hell, pushing bills that would actively legalize adult men getting married to children. It's absolutely fucking disgusting. But it's the same thing all over again, isn't it? It's the same thing, isn't it? Just a whole repeat. Just a whole repeat of events. History really is a cycle, isn't it, chat? Anyway, there's a reason why paying attention to stuff like this is so important. It is. This kind of thing is very important to pay attention to. The right is going to continue to build their narrative and their talking points on projection talking points, projection-based ideas. They're going to, if you are wondering what the right is planning, look at what they accuse the left of. And whatever they're accusing us of is what we need to prepare for them to do. Because they always do this, right? Do you remember how for years and years it was the left is trying to indoctrinate the kids into like the LGBT agenda or whatever? Do you guys remember? You know, it's always been the narrative for a long, long time, and it's bad because the kids don't deserve to have politics given, like, kids are too young to be exposed to politics, yada, yada. The left is wrong for that. Kids shouldn't be exposed to this. They're too young. Let them grow up, yada, yada. And now it is totally acceptable for them, because the left did it, I guess, in their minds, to make full-on multi-million-dollar funded right-wing propaganda channels specifically targeted at propagandizing to children. The right is holding on to momentum better than the left. They're up to a lot right now, even crazy shit like this. Yeah. Something the left will always be very bad at is actually, like, being okay with winning. The left will never just sit and allow itself to win. Like, think about it. Imagine if, like, the online left had not been insane in early 2019 and onward. Can you imagine how different things would look right now? How much better the online left's name would be without any of the crazy dramas that have happened since 2019? That are all just, think of all the baseless, dumb fuck dramas that were caused by the online left being insane that have happened over the last 3 years that caused BreadTube to kind of not have the best reputation. Think about that for a moment. Imagine none of that happened. Kind of looks like a different timeline, huh? No, Big Red was way too long ago. I'm talking about since 2019. Big Red was 2014, Poob. And yes, the reactionaries, 8 years later, are still using Big Red in their thumbnails. 8 years later. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. Follow my social medias linked down below. They're all pretty poggers, and you should definitely follow me there. And finally, if you want to support me financially, please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, as all of your donations do contribute to the Sonic Onesie stream dono goal, in which, once we hit the goal, I put on a Shadow the Hedgehog onesie. It's very cute. And you can also support me on YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, and Stream Elements, as well as through Patreon. And if you want to really support me without, having to spend any money, you can also simply hit the like button either on the stream or on the video. Regardless, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.